Tanya was a philosopher, a faculty in philosophy. And it was actually, I learned a lot through Tanya because I would never see her on campus. I don't think I ever saw her anywhere except for as being part of SCC and in our professional learning spaces. But she was full of energy, always had great ideas. And she led a professional she led a PD associated to non-grading, and it was the first concept I've ever heard of non-grading. And I had asked her to lead it, and she did, and she put together an entire PowerPoint explaining why she went off and stopped grading students the traditional way. And I remember walking out of that PD saying, how do I do this in my class? And I kid you not, I emailed Tanya and I said, Tanya, I'm doing this, and I don't know if my students are going to like it or not. But at the end of the semester, last spring of 2021, I told my students, all right, we're changing our final exam. And we did a celebration of learning based off of Tanya's work. In fact, we consulted with her and asked her for her rubric and things like that. And this semester, I've incorporated that as well. But I remember reaching out to her at the very end of the semester, and I said, Tanya, people may not tell you that you've made an impact, but I would tell you this, that from that PD that you led, you made an impact, not in just my statistics class, but in another professor's statistics class, because we all came together. It was like a total of 5 classes that were redefined just based off of our one professional development. And we've continued that. And so now we're continuing it in her honor. And in fact, this semester, we start off 2 of our statistics classes with who do you represent, to bring in that intersectionality of students. And that's a legacy to her as well, because that's how she started her classes. And that was one change that she made. So we honor her in that way.
She was on fire as a person, as an instructor, as a member of our PLC. Her energy, her enthusiasm for life and for people, for her students, her love for life and embracing adventure, not just adventure for adventure's sake, but for to parallel what she believed in creating and living a life worth living, both from an intellectual perspective, is what I'll continue to think about for the rest of my life. That's something I've been inspired by from her. And my relationships with my students will forever be impacted by what I learned from Tanya.
And I remember that Tanya was very, she was very in tune with who she was and who she represented. And she was always trying to learn, even though she had the title of a doctor, right? She was always wanting to learn. She was always practicing a growth mindset. And in fact, at one point, she invited me to her class, and she asked me to introduce the concept of healing circles. And as I facilitated a healing circle in her class, she really became interested in learning more on how to facilitate these type of circles. And I know that from interaction with her after that visit, I learned that she adopted one of the parts of the healing circles, and that is asking students and colleagues within a classroom setting, or maybe some type of meeting, right? Who do you represent? And that's one time I remember that Tanya shared that with us, and she says, you know what? One thing I do now every time in my class is I ask students who they represent, and that really, really was a breakthrough moment for our professional learning community, for her and for all of us, because we celebrated the fact that even if we have a master's or a doctorate or have multiple degrees, there's always room for improvement, always room for growth. And not only does she have a doctorate, but I believe her legacy is that she modeled the fact that we can learn beyond 3-4 degrees that we may have.
Tanya, and the way she impressed me professionally stems from the first time I met her, which would have been at least 2 years ago at the first PLC meeting of that semester. I happened to sit next to her, and I was just drawn to her vitality, her enthusiasm, her commitment to her own work in her own field, but even more so to her students. And that's the legacy, that's the gift that Tanya has left with me.
So I'm going to go through a few points, like, you know, when we're talking about what is the purpose of a grade, and the questions we started at the beginning, like, does it help students improve? And at least in our discussion, there was one or two people that thought so. Does it motivate at-risk students? And in our discussion, people thought it might motivate some students. The research shows, I'll talk about this in a minute, the research shows that, yeah, it motivates the top students. The A-, already A, B+ students, they are motivated by continuing to get those high grades. It's the rest of students that aren't motivated by them, right?